You know what's funny? When people talk about being a servant in those grand Edwardian houses, they always make it sound romantic. The gleaming silverware, the elegant uniforms, the chance to peek into the lives of the wealthy. But let me tell you something that might shock you. Nearly 1.5 million people in Britain worked as servants in the early 1900s. That's more people than worked in factories or on farms combined. And most of them weren't living some glamorous Downton Abbey fantasy. They were working 17-hour days in dark, damp basement, sleeping in freezing attics, and emptying chamber pots filled with other people's waste. Trust me, it wasn't like the TV shows at all. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from. So drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, let's head back to 1905. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. So congratulations. You just woke up in Edwardian England, 1905, and you're Lucy Bennett, 15 years old, daughter of a poor seamstress from the East End of London. Your eyes flutter open to darkness. Complete darkness, not like your bedroom now, with the little glowing lights from your phone charger or the street lamps outside. This is proper darkness, the kind that presses against your eyes like a weight. You're lying on a thin straw mattress. It crinkles beneath you, smells musty. Nothing like your memory foam bed back home. The rough blanket scratches against your skin. The air is cold, bone cold, the kind that makes your breath visible. You can hear the soft snoring of 3 other girls sharing this tiny attic room with you. One of them mumbles something in her sleep. Your stomach clenches with a sharp pang. Not just hunger, but fear. Today is your first day as a scullery maid at Thornfield Hall, a grand country estate in Hampshire. Your mother found you this position through a friend of a friend. It's a respectable house, she said. You'll be fed and have a roof over your head. What more could a girl like you want? A girl like you. The implication was clear. A girl from your background had few options. Factory work was dangerous, the streets even more so. Service was the safest bet. A bell jangled somewhere in the darkness. Not a gentle chime, a harsh, demanding rattle. A moment later, a match flared and the room was bathed in weak yellow light as Martha, the head housemaid, lit a small candle. "Up you get, girls," she whispers. "5 hussardro. Cook wants the range lit and water boiling before she comes down. 5 azardri in the morning. Your body aches from yesterday's journey. The train ride from London, then the long walk up to the house with your single cardboard suitcase. The brief, terrifying meeting with Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper who looked you up and down like you were a horse she was thinking about buying. Bit scrawny, she'd said to no one in particular, but I suppose she'll do. The last girl left without notice. Going to a factory, if you can believe it, as if that's any kind of life for a respectable young woman. Martha nudges you. "Come on, new girl. No dolling on your first day. And remember what Mrs. Wilson said. Servants are to be seen and not heard. Actually, better yet, not even seen if you can help it." You stumble out of bed. The floorboards are ice against your bare feet. The other girls are already moving with practice efficiency, splashing water from a shared basin onto their faces, pinning up their hair. No luxurious morning showers here. Just a quick wipe with a damp cloth to the face, neck, and hands. "You'll need to dress quickly," Martha explains, tossing you a plain cotton dress, coarse white apron, and cloth cap. The family isn't up yet, but Mr. Simmons, the butler, likes everything to be ready 2 hours before they need it. And God help you if you're not ready when he comes down. Your fingers fumble with the unfamiliar buttons. Back home, you'd never worn anything so utilitarian, but you manage. And when you're done, Martha gives you a critical once-over. That'll do for now, though you'll need your own proper uniform soon. A week's wages should cover it, I reckon. A week's wages just to buy the clothes you need to work here. You hadn't expected that. Martha sees your expression and softens a bit. Don't worry, Mrs. Patterson in the village can make them cheap enough. Now come on. You follow her down a narrow, twisting staircase. So many stairs. You count them absently. 3. All the way to 64. 64. Steps from your attic bedroom to the basement kitchen. You'll climb these stairs countless times today and every day after. Up and down. Carrying coal scuttles, hot water cans, clean linens, dirty linens, chamber pots. You don't know it yet, but these stairs will be your constant companion, your daily torment. The kitchen is vast and dark. A massive iron range dominates one wall. This hulking beast will be your responsibility to light each morning. No electric stoves yet in 1905. No switches to flip or buttons to push, just iron coal and fire. Here, Martha hands you a shovel. Clear out yesterday's ashes first, then lay the kindling like this. The coal goes on top. Make sure it catches proper. If the range isn't hot enough for cook's breakfast, she'll have your hide. The ashes are cold and grimy. They coat your hands in seconds. The smell of old smoke clings to your hair, your skin. This is nothing like flipping on your coffee maker back home. When you've got that going, Martha continues, not waiting to see if you've mastered this first task. You need to start heating water. Lots of it. The family will need hot water brought up for washing. And don't forget to polish the brass while the water's heating. You nod, trying to keep up. The list of tasks seems endless. After that, you'll need to scrub the steps outside the servants' entrance, then polish the boots, all 14 pairs, then help cook with breakfast preparations, then clear the ash buckets from all the fireplaces upstairs, then scrub the kitchen floor. All before breakfast, your own breakfast. That is what you'll eat standing up in the kitchen while the family's breakfast is being prepared. What time do I finish? You ask, voice small, in the cavernous kitchen. Martha laughs, not unkindly, but with genuine amusement. Finish. Oh, you poor thing. You don't finish love. Not really. You'll be up until the family retires. Could be 10, could be midnight. If they're entertaining, then up again at 5 tomorrow. The reality of what you've signed up for begins to sink in. 6 days a week, with half a day off on Sundays, if you're lucky, for 3 times a year, plus room and board. That's less than what a factory girl makes in a month. But at least you won't be breathing in cotton dust or risking your fingers in machinery. At least that's what your mother said when she put you on that train yesterday. Don't look so glum, Martha says, as if reading your thoughts. It's better than the workhouse. That was the measuring stick, wasn't it? Better than the workhouse. Better than the streets, better than starvation. Not good. Just better than the worst fate imaginable. The kitchen gradually comes to life around you. Betsy, the kitchen maid, arrives to start chopping vegetables. Then Mrs. Peters, the cook, a formidable woman with forearms like a dock worker from years of kneading dough and lifting heavy pots. And finally, Mr. Simmons, the butler, immaculate in his black suit despite the ungodly hour. They barely acknowledge you. You're the lowest of the low, a scullery maid, the human dishwasher, the pot scrubber invisible. By 7 Hosro, you've already blacked the range, carried 12 buckets of coal, up from the coal cellar, polished. 14 pairs of boots, scrubbed the back steps, and helped Betsy peel potatoes for the family's breakfast. Your hands are raw, your back aches, and the day has barely begun. Time to carry up the hot water, Martha announces. You follow her to the copper where water has been heating. She shows you how to fill the heavy brass cans without splashing yourself. Each one weighs at least 10 pounds when full, and you'll need to carry them up all 64 steps to the family bedrooms. Don't slush it, Martha warns, and don't let the family see you. Use the back stairs. If you do happen to pass one of them, press yourself against the wall and look at the floor. Never make eye contact. The first can nearly pulls your arm from its socket. By the third, your muscles are screaming. By the fifth, you've developed a technique, sort of. Keep your back straight. Take the stairs slowly. Don't think about the weight. Just move. As you round a corner, on the back stairs, with your 6th can of water, you nearly collide with a young woman in an elegant dressing gown. Lady Catherine, the eldest daughter of the house. You freeze, remembering Martha's instructions. Eyes down, press against the wall. But Lady Catherine doesn't seem to notice you're there at all. She walks past without a glance, the scent of lavender perfume trailing in her wake. You might as well be a piece of furniture. And in that moment, something becomes crystal clear. You're not just carrying hot water. You're invisible. A ghost haunting the corners and corridors of this grand house, moving through the lives of these wealthy people without leaving a ripple. Did you see her? You whisper excitedly to Martha when you return downstairs. See who? Martha asks, genuinely confused. Lady Catherine on the stairs just now. Martha shrugs. I never notice them anymore, and they never notice us. That's how it works. But you had noticed. You'd seen the silk of her dressing gown, the soft curl of her hair. You'd smelled her perfume. And you wonder what it must be like to be her, to wake up whenever you please, to have someone bring you hot water instead of carrying it yourself, to own a dressing gown that probably costs more than your entire year's wages. Back in the kitchen, breakfast preparations are in full swing. Not for you, for the family. Their breakfast is a production. Kippers, eggs bacon toast, kedgeree deviled kidneys, porridge pastries, coffee tea, all served on heated silver platters with polished silver covers to keep the food warm on its journey from kitchen to dining room. Your breakfast, by contrast, is a mug of tea so weak you can see through it, and a chunk of bread with a scraping of dripping. You eat it standing up by the kitchen sink. No time to sit. What happens after breakfast? You ask Betsy, the kitchen maid, who's just one step above you in the hierarchy. She looks at you like you've grown a second head. After breakfast, why, we start preparing for lunch, of course. And so it goes. The morning blurs into a frenzy of activity. Scrubbing pots, peeling vegetables, running errands for cook, carrying coal. Emptying slop buckets, more stairs, always more stairs. By midday, your arms feel like lead weights. Your feet throb inside your 2 big boots, hand-me-downs from a maid who left last month. Your lower back is a solid knot of pain. And then you hear it, the deafening clatter of the servant's dinner bell. Your heart leaps. Finally, a chance to sit down. The servants' hall is a long, narrow room with a scrubbed wooden table running down the center. You follow Betsy in, but when you move to sit down, she grabs your arm. Not there, she hisses. That's where the upper servants sit. We sit down at the far end. The seating arrangement, you quickly learn, is a perfect mirror of the servants' hierarchy. Mr. Simmons, the butler, sits at the head. Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, at the foot. Then the valet, the lady's maid, the cook. The footmen come next, then the housemaids, then the kitchen maid. And at the very end, crammed onto a bench that doesn't quite fit under the table, sits you, the scullery maid. The food is simple but filling, a thick stew with more vegetables than meat, bread, potatoes. Nothing like the elaborate meal being served upstairs. But after your morning's labor, it tastes like heaven. Conversation flows around you, but not much of it is directed at you. You're still the new girl, the outsider. You'll have to earn your place in this tightly knit community. Did you hear? One of the footmen whispers loudly. Lady Catherine's got a new suitor, some baron from Yorkshire. Father's supposed to be loaded. Well, she'd better hope he proposes soon, the lady's maid replies. She's nearly 22, practically on the shelf. A ripple of laughter runs down the table. Even Mr. Simmons cracks a smile. You listen, fascinated by these glimpses into the life upstairs. It's like reading a novel in fragments, bits and pieces of stories about people you'll rarely see, even though you live under the same roof. New girl. Mrs. Wilson's sharp voice cuts through your thoughts. You'll be needed to help serve tea this afternoon. One of the housemates has taken ill. Your heart sinks. Serving tea means going upstairs, being visible, having to interact with the family. But I don't know how you protest weakly. Then you'll learn, won't you? Mrs. Wilson replies, her tone making it clear the matter is settled. After dinner, there's a brief lull. 15 minutes where you're allowed to sit in the servants' hall and rest. The others use this time to mend clothes or write letters home. You have nothing to mend yet, and no one to write to except your mother, who won't expect a letter for weeks. So you just sit, massaging your aching feet, and trying not to think about the afternoon ahead. All too soon, the 15 minutes are up, and you're back to work. Martha takes you aside to give you a crash course in tea service. You don't speak, unless spoken to, she instructs. You offer the tray from the left. You never let the pot run dry, and for God's sake, don't drop anything. At precisely 4 Ijrisher, you follow Martha up the main staircase. Not the back stairs this time, since you're on official duty. The opulence of the main part of the house takes your breath away. Thick carpets that swallow the sound of your footsteps. Gleaming wood paneling. Paintings in gilded frames. Crystal chandeliers. It's like walking into a different world. The drawing room is even more impressive. Sunlight streams through tall windows, illuminating silk wallpaper and velvet upholstery. Lady Thornfield sits on a chaise lounge, while Lady Catherine and 2 other young women you don't recognize occupy armchairs around a low table. They're all dressed in afternoon gowns of pale pastels, their hair elaborately arranged. Martha nudges you forward with the tea tray. Your hands tremble slightly as you offer tiny sandwiches and delicate pastries. Lady Thornfield takes a cucumber sandwich without glancing at you. Lady Catherine selects a pastry, then pauses, looking directly at you. You're new, aren't you? She says, her voice neutral. You freeze, panicking. Are you supposed to answer? Martha didn't prepare you for this. Yes, my lady. You managed your voice barely audible. What's your name, Lucy? My lady. Well, Lucy, be careful with that tray. Those are Wedgwood plates. Each one costs more than you'll earn in a year. There's no malice in her tone, just a statement of fact. You nod, face burning with humiliation, and continue serving. The women resumed their conversation as if the exchange never happened. The Cartwright's ball was simply dreadful. One of the visitors says the orchestra was second-rate and they served champagne that wasn't properly chilled. I thought Lady Cartwright would die of embarrassment. Did you see what Mrs. Burnham was wearing? Another chimes in. That awful green satin that made her look like an overripe pear. I wanted to tell her that just because a color is fashionable doesn't mean it's flattering. They laugh, these beautiful idle women in their beautiful idle world, and you stand there invisible again, holding your tray and thinking about how you've already been working for 11 hours and your day is only half over. Back downstairs, the kitchen is a hive of activity preparing for dinner. This will be your first experience of a formal Edwardian dinner service, and it's overwhelming. Course after course must be prepared, plated, and served with military precision. The family will change clothes again for dinner. The men in black tie the women in evening gowns. Dinner is served in reverse order of importance, Betsy explains, as you help her polish silver. Soup first, then fish, then the entree, then the joint, then the roast, then sorbet to cleanse the palate, then game or poultry, then sweet, then savory, then dessert. And it all has to be perfect. Dessert and sweet aren't the same thing. Betsy laughs. Lord, no. Sweet is a pudding or pastry. Dessert is fruit and nuts. It's all very particular. Particular. That's the word that keeps coming to mind as you navigate your first day in service. Everything is so particular. There's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. And the wrong way is never acceptable. The brass has to be polished with a specific paste applied with a specific cloth in a specific circular motion. The vegetables have to be chopped to a specific size. The table has to be set with the silverware at a specific distance from the edge measured with actual rulers. Every detail matters because every detail reflects on the family, their wealth, their status, their place in society, and your job, your entire existence in this house is to maintain those details to keep the illusion of effortless elegance intact, to ensure that Lady Thornfield never has to think about how hot water gets to her wash basin, or how the silver comes to be so gleaming, or how her dinner appears before her perfectly timed and perfectly presented. It's nearly midnight by the time the family retires and the kitchen is finally cleaned to cook's exacting standards. 17. Hours after you woke up, you're finally allowed to drag yourself back up those 64 stairs to your attic bedroom. Your roommates are already there in various stages of undressing. Too exhausted for conversation, you pull off your uniform, splash some cold water on your face from the shared basin, and collapse onto your thin mattress. First day is the hardest, Martha says from her bed in the corner. You'll get used to it. You're not sure you want to get used to it. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. Your hands are red and raw from hot water, harsh soap, and constant scrubbing. Your feet feel like they've been pounded with hammers. But as you lie there in the darkness, listening to the breathing of the other girls, something strange happens. A sense of accomplishment creeps in. You survived. You didn't break anything. You didn't get fired on your first day. And somewhere along the way, between the terror and the exhaustion, you actually learned things. How to black arrange. How to polish silver. How to carry a tea tray without rattling the cups. Small victories, perhaps, but they're yours. Outside the tiny attic window, you can see a patch of night sky. The same stars that shine over London, where your mother is probably thinking about you, hoping you're doing well in your grand new position. The same stars that will shine tomorrow night, and the night after, and the night after that. Because this is your life now. Day after day of endless work, invisible labor that makes the visible splendor possible. A life in the shadows polishing the silver that shines for others. You close your eyes knowing that in just 5 hours the bell will ring again, and you'll rise again and do it all over again. But something else happened today. Something you can't quite articulate yet. You glimpsed a world beyond your own. A world of privilege and beauty. Yes, but also a world bound by its own invisible rules, its own particular prisons. Lady Catherine, with all her wealth and status, is still waiting for a man to determine her future, still being judged on how she looks, how she behaves, who she marries. Different constraints than yours. Certainly golden handcuffs instead of iron ones, but constraints nonetheless. You drift off to sleep with that thought echoing in your mind that perhaps in this house of rigid hierarchies and invisible walls, no one is truly free, not even those who sleep in the grand bedrooms below. Before you succumb completely to exhaustion, a commotion in the hallway snaps you back to wakefulness. Footsteps, urgent voices. Martha sits up in her bed. "What's happening?" you ask. "Don't know," she replies, reaching for her dressing gown. "But it can't be good at this hour." She disappears into the hallway. Minutes later, she returns, her face grim. "It's William, the hall boy," she says quietly. "He's collapsed, been working with a fever all day, apparently, Mrs. Wilson sent for the doctor." But she doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. You all know what happens to servants who can't work. No sick days, no paid leave. If William can't perform his duties, he'll be replaced. Simple as that. "Poor lad," one of the other maids murmurs. "He's only 12. 12. Younger than your little brother back home. Working the same punishing hours as the rest of you, carrying coal cleaning boots, running messages up and down those endless stairs. Should we do something, you ask? Help somehow?" Martha shakes her head. "Nothing to be done. Get some sleep. If he's gone tomorrow, we'll all have to take up the slack until they find a replacement." And just like that, the incident is closed. Another reminder of your precarious position in this world of how easily any of you could be replaced. You lie back down, but sleep is slower to come now. You think about William feverish and alone, about Lady Catherine in her silk dressing gown, about your mother, who thought she was sending you to a better life. And you wonder what tomorrow will bring in this strange new world you've entered. This world of shadows and silver, where you work in plain sight, but remain unseen as you finally drift off to sleep. The last thing you register is the gentle patter of rain against the attic window, a soothing rhythm that finally carries you away into dreamless exhaustion. The second day was worse than the first. Your muscles screamed in protest the moment Martha shook you awake. Every part of you ached. Even your fingernails seemed to hurt. But the bell had rung, and in service, the bell was law. "Come on, lazy bones," Martha whispered. "Cook wants to see you before breakfast." Your stomach clenched. Had you done something wrong yesterday? Were you about to be sent packing after just one day? You followed Martha down those 64 stairs again, counting each one, to distract yourself from the dread building in your chest. The kitchen was already alive with activity. William the hall boy was nowhere to be seen. In his place, a new boy, even younger, was struggling to carry a coal scuttle twice his size. Mrs. Peters, the cook, was at her station by the range, her broad back to you, as she kneaded dough with powerful, practiced movements. "The new girl's here, Mrs. Peters," Martha announced. Mrs. Peters turned flour up to her elbows, her face stern but not unkind. "Ah, Lucy, isn't it?" Martha says. "You did well enough yesterday. Not too much breakage." You blinked in surprise. "A compliment already?" "Thank you, Mom," you murmured, eyes downcast as you'd been taught. "Now then, with William gone, we're short-handed. I need you to take on extra duties. You'll need to learn fast. Can you do that?" You nodded, not trusting yourself to speak. "Good. First things first. You need to understand how things work around here. The rules, the order of things. Martha will show you the ropes, but I want to make something clear." She leaned in close, her voice dropping. "In this house, there's a proper way to do everything, and there's consequences for doing things improperly." She straightened up, brushing flour from her hands. "Right then, off you go. The range won't light itself." As you turned to your duties, you couldn't help wondering about William. Had he recovered? Was he being cared for? Or had he simply been replaced? You didn't have long to ponder these questions. The morning routine was relentless. Light the range, carry the coal heat, the water polish the brass. The same tasks as yesterday, but today they seem to take twice as long. Your body protesting every movement. Stand up straight, Martha hissed as you slouched over the sink, scrubbing pots. Mrs. Wilson's making her morning inspection. You straightened quickly, ignoring the twinge in your lower back. Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, ruled the female staff with an iron fist in a velvet glove. Her word was law, second only to that of Mr. Simmons, the butler. She swept into the kitchen. Now, immaculate in her black dress, a ring of keys jangling at her waist, the symbol of her authority. Those keys opened every cupboard, every closet, every room in the house. Nothing was locked to Mrs. Wilson. Her sharp eyes scanned the kitchen, missing nothing. Mel, way. Copper needs more polishing, she said to no one in particular. And someone needs to sweep under the table again. I can see crumbs from here. You kept your head down, scrubbing furiously at an already clean pot, hoping to avoid her attention. But luck wasn't on your side. You knew, girl. Your heart sank. Yes, Mrs. Wilson. You'll serve at dinner tonight. Martha will show you how to dress properly. I won't have the family seeing servants looking like ragamuffins. With that, she swept out, leaving a tense silence in her wake. Serve at dinner, you whispered to Martha when Mrs. Wilson was safely out of earshot. But I've never. Don't worry, Martha cut in. You won't be doing much, just standing against the wall, ready to clear plates when Mr. Simmons signals footmen do the actual serving. That afternoon, while the family was out riding, Martha took you up to her room. From a battered trunk, she pulled out a black dress with white cuffs and collar. My old serving dress, she explained. It'll be big on you, but we can pin it and you'll need a proper cap. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the rumpled scullery made in her coarse cotton. In the small mirror, you saw someone almost respectable. The black dress, though loose, gave you a certain dignity. The starched white cap perched on your neatly pinned hair completed the picture. Remember, Martha instructed as she adjusted your collar. The family doesn't want to know you exist. Stand straight. Don't fidget. Don't make eye contact unless spoken to, and for God's sake, don't drop anything. At 6 sharp, you followed Martha to the butler's pantry, where Mr. Simmons was inspecting the silver for the evening meal. The footmen, Thomas and James, were already there, resplendent in their livery. Ah, the new girl, Mr. Simmons said, looking you over critically. You'll stand by the sideboard. Watch Martha's signals. When I nod to you, step forward and clear from the left. Always from the left, and mind you don't clink the china. The dining room took your breath away. You'd glimpsed it yesterday while polishing brass. But now set for dinner, it was truly magnificent. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier. Silver gleamed on crisp white linen. Fresh flowers scented the air. Don't gawk, Thomas, the first footman muttered. Makes you look simple. You closed your mouth quickly, taking your position by the sideboard as instructed. And then you waited standing perfectly still. As Martha had taught you, back straight hands, clasped eyes forward, but focused on nothing. The family entered, Lord and Lady Thornfield leading the way, followed by their children, Lady Catherine, whom you'd already met, and Lord Henry, the young heir, home from Oxford for the summer. With them were 2 guests, Sir William and Lady Barton from the neighboring estate. You watched from your place against the wall as they took their seats, as James pulled out chairs and Thomas unfurled napkins with a flourish. The conversation flowed easily among them about people and places you'd never heard of. Did you see the Carringtons in London last week? Lady Barton asked. They've bought the most absurd motor car. Makes the most dreadful noise. Frightened my horse half to death when they drove past Hyde Park. Henry wants one of those infernal machines. Lady Thornfield said with a sigh. I keep telling him they're just a passing fad. Not a fad, Mother, Lord Henry replied with the confidence of youth. The future, mark my words, in 10 years everyone will have one. The meal progressed smoothly through its many courses. Soup fish entree joint. You watched, fascinated by the dance of service. Thomas serving from the right, Martha and James clearing from the left. Mr. Simmons supervising it all with microscopic attention to detail. When your turn came to clear the fish plates, you moved forward cautiously, remembering Martha's instructions. Left side, don't rush. One plate at a time. The family continued their conversation as if you weren't there. You were furniture, a useful object, nothing more. But as you reached for Lady Catherine's plate, she glanced up, catching your eye for just a moment. Something passed between you, a flicker of recognition perhaps. Or maybe it was just your imagination. Back in the kitchen, the pace was frantic. As fast as plates came down from the dining room, they had to be washed, dried, and prepared for the next course. You worked alongside Betsy the kitchen maid in a rhythm of scrape, wash, rinse, dry. You're getting the hang of it, Betsy said approvingly as you stacked clean plates with growing confidence. Took me a week to stop breaking things. By the time dessert was served upstairs, your hands were raw from hot water and harsh soap, but there was a strange satisfaction in seeing the stacks of clean china ready for tomorrow's breakfast. Not bad for your second day, Martha said, as you all collapsed in the servants' hall after the family had retired to the drawing room. Mrs. Wilson might make a proper housemaid of you yet. Is that a step up from scullery maid? You asked, massaging your aching wrists. The other servants exchanged glances, some amused, others sympathetic. Of course it is, Thomas said, leaning back in his chair. Let me explain how things work around here. It's like the army sea ranks and all that. He pointed to Mr. Simmons, who had gone upstairs to attend to Lord Thornfield. The butler's like the general. Nothing happens without his say-so. Then you've got Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper. She's in charge of all the female staff. Except the cook, Martha interjected. Mrs. Peters answers directly to Lady Thornfield. Thomas nodded. Then there's his lordship's valet and her ladyship's lady's maid. They're top drawer among us because they work directly with the family. After that, it's footmen. He pined, slightly ranked by height and experience. Footmen get paid more if they're taller. You asked, incredulous. Of course, we're ornamental as well as useful. Why do you think I got hired? It wasn't for my brains. He grinned, showing off his handsome features. Then housemaids, Martha continued, ranked by seniority. Kitchen staff come next, the cook kitchen maids and so on. Then at the bottom, there's scullery maids like you and hallboys. You digested this information slowly. So moving from scullery maid to housemaid would be a promotion. A big one, Martha confirmed. Better pay for one thing, slightly better hours, and you'd get to work upstairs more, which means better tips from house guests. Tips. You hadn't thought about those. Extra money, beyond your meager wages. Something to send home to your mother, perhaps. How long does it usually take? You asked. To move up, I mean. The others exchanged glances again, and you sensed you'd asked a naive question. Depends, Martha said finally. Some never move up at all. Some jump ranks if they've got the right qualities. The way she said qualities made you think she didn't mean skill or experience. Don't go getting ideas above your station. Thomas warned, though, not unkindly. Best way to make enemies in service is to be too ambitious. Know your place and stick to it. That's my advice. Your place being 6 feet tall and empty-headed, James the second footman quipped, earning a cuff around the ear from Thomas. The conversation moved on, but you sat quietly taking it all in. The hierarchy wasn't just about jobs and duties. It was a whole social structure with its own rules and expectations. And you were learning that those unwritten rules were often more important than the official ones. Later that night, as you helped Martha turn down the beds in the family's rooms, you got another glimpse of the world above stairs. Each bedroom was like something from a fairy tale. 4 poster beds with silk hangings, dressing tables laden with silver brushes and crystal bottles, wardrobes full of gorgeous clothes. Lady Catherine has more dresses than I've seen in my whole life, you whispered, as Martha showed you how to turn down the counterpay, just so. And each one costs more than we make in a year, Martha replied matter-of-factly. That's just how it is. They have, and we don't. No use thinking about it. But you couldn't help thinking about it. About the contrast between these luxurious rooms and your bare attic. About Lady Catherine, not much older than you, who never had to black arrange or empty a chamber pot. In her room, you noticed a book on the bedside table, a novel by Jane Austen. You'd heard of her, but never read her works. Reading wasn't encouraged among servants, except for the Bible and prayer books. Do you ever wonder what it would be like, you asked Martha, as you plumped Lady Catherine's pillows, to live like them? Martha gave you a sharp look. That kind of thinking leads nowhere good. Be content with your lot. There's plenty worse off than us. That night, lying in your narrow bed, you thought about Martha's words. Be content with your lot. It was what everyone said to people like you. Don't aspire. Don't dream. Accept your place. But something rebellious stirred in your heart. Why shouldn't you aspire? Why shouldn't you dream of a better life? Not necessarily silk dresses and servants of your own, but something more than this endless round of drudgery. Your thoughts were interrupted by soft sobbing from the bed next to yours. It was Annie, the youngest housemaid, barely 14. What's wrong? You whispered, careful not to wake the others. I miss my mom, Annie sniffled. And my little brothers. I haven't seen them in 6 months. You reached across the space between your beds and squeezed her hand. When's your next half-day off? Sunday after next. But they live in York, too far to visit. York miles away. And Annie was right. A half-day off wasn't enough time to travel there and back. She might not see her family for years. I've got a letter from my mom. Annie continued, her voice small in the darkness. But I can't read it. I never learned properly. Without thinking, you slipped out of your bed and into hers, taking the crumpled letter she held out. Dear Annie, you read softly. We hope this finds you well. Your brothers ask about you every day. Little Tom lost his first tooth yesterday and was so proud. The money you sent helped us pay the rent this month. We pray for you daily and hope your position is secure. The letter went on, full of small family details and maternal concern. By the time you finished reading it, Annie's tears had stopped. Thank you, she whispered. Will you help me write back on Sunday? Of course, you promised, squeezing her hand again before returning to your own bed. As you drifted toward sleep, you thought about connections. Annie to her family in York, you to your mother in London, even Lady Catherine to her potential suitors. Everyone tied to someone else by invisible threads of obligation, expectation, or love. The hierarchy of the house suddenly seemed more complex than you'd first understood. It wasn't just about who gave orders and who followed them. It was about who belonged where and why. About the barriers that separated people. Barriers of class, wealth, education, opportunity. Barriers that seemed in that moment, between wakefulness and sleep, both insurmountable and strangely fragile. The next morning brought a surprise. As you were scrubbing the kitchen floor, Mrs. Wilson appeared, her face even more pinched than usual. Lucy, she said briskly, you're to attend Lady Catherine this afternoon. She specifically asked for you. Your hand froze mid-scrub. Me, Mrs. Wilson? But I'm not trained as a lady's maid. Obviously, she replied dryly, but Lady Catherine was impressed by your service at dinner. Said you had a steadier hand than the others. Her regular lady's maid is unwell, and Martha is needed elsewhere. You'll have to do." She swept out before you could protest further, leaving you kneeling on the wet floor, brush in hand, wondering what on earth Lady Catherine could want with a scullery maid. The answer came that afternoon when you reported nervous and scrubbed pink to Lady Catherine's room. "Ah, Lucy," she said, looking up from her writing desk. "Good. I need someone to help me sort through some things. Come in and close the door." You obeyed, heart pounding. The room smelled of lavender and beeswax polish. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains, illuminating Lady Catherine's fair hair. "My mother is insisting I go through my wardrobe before the London season," she explained, gesturing to a mountain of dresses laid out on the bed. "Apparently, I have too many clothes. Some are to be given away. I need help deciding which ones." You stood awkwardly, unsure of your role. Were you supposed to offer opinions? Just fold and pack? Lady Catherine seemed to sense your confusion. "I know this isn't your usual work," she said with unexpected gentleness, "but I noticed you yesterday. You seemed different from the others, more observant." You flushed at the compliment unexpected from someone of her station. "Thank you, my lady." So she continued, briskly, "I thought you might help me choose which dresses to keep and which to give to my cousins in Hampshire. They're less fortunate than us poor dears. And Mother says charity begins at home. Less fortunate." You almost laughed at the idea that anyone related to this family could be considered unfortunate in any way, but you kept your face neutral as Lady Catherine held up dress after exquisite dress. "This one?" she asked, displaying a pale blue silk gown with pearl beading. "Too juvenile, perhaps." "It's lovely, my lady," you said, cautiously. "The color would suit you very well." She gave you an appraising look. "You have an eye for color, Lucy. Interesting. What about this one?" And so it went for the next hour. Lady Catherine asking your opinion. You offering tentative responses, gradually growing bolder as you realized she genuinely seemed to value your input. It was the strangest afternoon of your life so far. This beautiful young woman, born to privilege and wealth, treating you a scullery made almost as an equal, almost. Because even in this moment of unusual intimacy, the barriers remained. She never asked about your life, your family, your hopes or dreams. To her, you were still a servant, perhaps a useful one, with a good eye for fashion, but a servant nonetheless. As you helped fold the discarded dresses for packing, Lady Catherine paused, her expression thoughtful. "Lucy," she said, "can you read?" The question took you by surprise. "Yes, my lady. My mother made sure of it." "Good. I have some books I've finished with. You can take them if you like. No one will notice they're gone. Books. Real books. Not just the Bible or prayer books." Your heart leapt at the thought. "Thank you, my lady. That's very kind." She waved away your thanks. "It's nothing. I've always thought it a waste that so many people never get the chance to read good literature." She selected 3 volumes from her bookshelf and handed them to you. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, and a newer novel you didn't recognize, something called Howard's End by E.M. Forster. Hide these. Well, she advised Mrs. Wilson wouldn't approve of servants reading novels. You clutched the books to your chest, overwhelmed by this unexpected gift. Not just the books themselves, but the recognition that you might want to read them, that you had a mind that craved more than just instructions on how to black arrange or polish silver. "I will, my lady. Thank you." As you turned to leave, Lady Catherine spoke again, her voice softer than before. "Lucy, what would you be if you weren't in service?" The question stopped you in your tracks. What would you be? No one had ever asked you that before. It was assumed that girls like you went into service. That was your lot, your place. "I don't know, my lady," you answered honestly. I've never thought about it. Lady Catherine nodded, as if you'd confirmed something for her. Neither have I, about myself. I mean, funny, isn't it? All these choices for what to wear, but not for what to be. You didn't know how to respond to that. It seemed too intimate, too revelatory, so you simply curtsied and left the precious books hidden beneath your apron. Back in the servants' hall, Martha raised an eyebrow at your flushed appearance. What did her ladyship want then? Just help sorting some dresses, you replied, careful to keep your voice neutral. The books were your secret, a private treasure. Martha snorted. Above my pay-grade fashion consultations. Still, if she's taken a fancy to you, that could be useful. Just don't get ideas. There it was again, that warning. Don't get ideas. Stay in your place. Accept your lot. But as you returned to your duties, peeling potatoes for dinner, now you couldn't help but wonder, what would you be if you weren't in service? A shopgirl, perhaps a teacher, or something else entirely, something you couldn't even imagine yet. And Lady Catherine, what would she be if she weren't an earl's daughter? If she had to work for her living like you did? These dangerous thoughts swirled in your mind as you prepared vegetables, carried coal, polished silver. The work was still hard, your body still ached. But something had shifted. A window had opened. Just a crack showing a glimpse of possibilities beyond these walls. That night, long after the others were asleep, you pulled out Pride and Prejudice from its hiding place beneath your mattress. By the dim light of a stolen candle end, you began to read about Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, about a world where love crossed boundaries of class and status. Just a story, of course, just fiction. But in the quiet darkness of the attic, it felt like a small act of rebellion, a tiny flame of hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be more to life than knowing your place and staying in it. Summer faded into autumn at Thornfield Hall. The trees in the great park turned gold and crimson. Mornings grew misty, afternoons shorter. The family went away to London for a fortnight, leaving the house half empty and strangely quiet. It's not much of a rest for us, Martha told you as you polished the great oak banister together. Just different work, spring cleaning in autumn. She was right. With the family gone, Mrs. Wilson unleashed a frenzy of deep cleaning. Carpets, beaten furniture moved, and floors scrubbed beneath curtains taken down, washed, and rehung silver polished within an inch of its life. But there was something almost pleasant about it. The pressure was different, no bells ringing at all hours, no formal meals to prepare and serve. Even Mr. Simmons seemed more relaxed, allowing the staff an extra half hour at dinner and turning a blind eye when Thomas smuggled in a bottle of beer from the village. They'll be back Saturday, Mrs. Wilson announced at breakfast on a brisk October morning. And they're bringing guests for the shooting party, 10 in all. We'll need to prepare the blue bedroom, the rose bedroom, and the 4 guest rooms in the east wing. A collective groan rose from the assembled staff, quickly stifled when Mrs. Wilson's sharp eyes swept the table. Lucy, she continued, you'll be assigned to help Ellen with the guest rooms. Martha says you've learned quickly. Your heart gave a little leap. Another small promotion. Not quite a housemaid yet, but no longer just a scullery maid either. Ellen, one of the junior housemaids, gave you a friendly nod across the table. And I need someone to go into the village this morning for extra candles and soap. The delivery won't come until tomorrow, and we need them today. Your hand shot up before you could think better of it. I'll go, Mrs. Wilson. She looked surprised, but nodded. Very well. Be back by noon. It was your first time leaving the grounds since arriving at Thornfield. The 2-mile walk to the village was glorious. Crisp air filling your lungs, autumn sunshine warming your face. You hadn't realized how much you'd missed the simple freedom of walking down a country lane unobserved and unhurried. The village was smaller than you'd expected. a cluster of stone cottages, a church, a green, a few shops, and a pub called the Red Lion. You found the chandler's shop easily enough and placed Mrs. Wilson's order. "From up at the hall, are you?" the shopkeeper asked, wrapping brown paper around a block of soap. "Yes, sir. Just started this summer." "New girl, eh? How you finding it?" His tone was friendly, curious. You hesitated, unsure how much to say. In the end, you settled for, "It's hard work, but the food's good." He laughed. "That's more than most can say. You working for Mrs. Wilson, then proper dragging that one. Been terrifying the staff up there for 20 years, so they say." You couldn't help smiling at the description. "She's strict. You allowed but fair mostly. Well, you seem a sensible girl. Not like some they get up there. Had one last year who ran off with a traveling salesman. Never heard from again. Poor thing." This bit of gossip made you think. You weren't the first girl to find service difficult, and you wouldn't be the last to dream of escape. With your purchases wrapped and paid for, you lingered in the village, reluctant to return to the house just yet. You had a whole hour before you needed to start back. The church caught your eye, its ancient stone tower reaching toward the clear blue sky. Inside it was cool and dim, smelling of stone and beeswax and thyme. You slipped into a pew at the back, enjoying the quiet. How strange to sit down in the middle of the day, to rest without being told to simply be still. The peace was broken by the sound of footsteps. A man emerged from a side door. The vicar, you assumed, from his clerical collar. "Hello there," he said, noticing you. "Just visiting?" "Yes, sir. I work up at the hall. Had an errand in the village." He nodded, his kind face lighting with understanding. "One of Mrs. Wilson's girls. I'm Reverend Clark. You're welcome here any time, my dear. We have service at 11 on Sundays. Some of the staff come down when they can get away." "Thank you, sir. I'd like that." The idea of an hour of peace each week was appealing, even if it had to be spent in prayer. There's a servants' reading circle too on Sunday afternoons in the parish hall. Books tea conversation. Nothing fancy, but it breaks the routine, a reading circle. Other servants who read. The thought made your heart beat faster. "What sort of books?" you asked. "Oh, all sorts. Miss Palmer from the doctor's house brought Dickens last week, and Mrs. Brown, who cooks for the Andersons, is fond of Mrs. Gaskell." He smiled at your eager expression. "You like to read, then? When I can, sir, there's not much time." "No, I don't suppose there is." His expression turned thoughtful. "Well, you'd be welcome too until first on most Sundays." You thanked him and slipped out your mind, buzzing with this new possibility. A reading circle. People like you servants coming together to discuss books. It seemed almost too good to be true. Back at Thornfield, you hid your excitement beneath a calm exterior as you delivered the soap and candles to Mrs. Wilson. But that night, as you lay in bed, you thought about Reverend Clark's invitation, if you could get a few hours off on Sunday. But servants rarely got more than an hour or two free on the Sabbath, and even that was usually in the evening after the family's needs were met. Still, the seed had been planted. A world existed beyond these walls. People who worked as you did, but still found time for books, for conversation, for a life of the mind. You fell asleep with Pride and Prejudice tucked beneath your pillow and dreamed of Elizabeth Bennet walking the halls of Thornfield in a housemaid's cap. The family returned as planned, bringing with them a whirlwind of activity. The shooting party consisted of Lord Thornfield's friends from London bankers, politicians, industrialists, all eager to cross the estate, killing as many birds as possible. Their wives came two elegant women who spent their mornings writing letters and their afternoons taking tea while the men were out with their guns. Lady Catherine moved among them with practiced grace, but sometimes, when no one was looking, you caught her stifling a yawn. The work doubled with so many guests, more beds to make more meals, to serve more boots, to clean clothes, to press baths, to fill. The staff worked from dawn until well past midnight, falling into bed, exhausted, only to rise again a few hours later. Shooting parties are the worst, Thomas grumbled as he polished what seemed like the 100th pair of gentleman's boots. Give me Christmas any day. Is Christmas very busy too? You asked, helping him line up the gleaming boots in pairs. Of course it is, but at least there's a bit of fun in it. Cook makes special treats for us, and we get presents from the family. Usually something practical, like gloves or a scarf, but still better than nothing. Christmas. You hadn't thought about it yet. Would you be able to go home to London? See your mother and brothers? Somehow, you doubted it. The journey was long and expensive, and who would do your work if you were gone? The shooting party finally departed after 10 days, leaving mountains of laundry and a staff on the verge of collapse. But there was no rest. November brought the first real chill of winter, and with it, a whole new set of tasks. Extra fireplaces to be lit, and tended hot water bottles to be filled for beds, storm windows to be installed, preserves to be made from the last of the autumn fruits. Always more work, always more demands. But you were changing too. Your hands, once soft and smooth, were now calloused and strong. You could carry a coal scuttle without effort. Black arranging minutes, polished silver to a mirror shine. Your body had adapted to the constant labor finding efficiency and movement economy and effort. And you'd made friends, not just Martha with her no-nonsense wisdom, but Ellen too, who taught you card games on rare free evenings, and Betsy from the kitchen, who saved you extra biscuits when she baked. Even Thomas, for all his swagger, had a kind word for you most days. Most surprising of all was your continuing connection with Lady Catherine. She requested your help regularly, now, not just with her wardrobe, but with arranging flowers, addressing invitations, even reading aloud to her while she embroidered. These quiet hours in her sitting room became a strange sort of sanctuary, a space between worlds where the rigid divisions of the house softened just a little. "Do you like poetry, Lucy?" she asked one November afternoon as rain lashed against the windows. "I don't know much of it, my lady," you admitted. "Just hymns mostly. Then we must expand your education." She handed you a slim volume. "Tenny start with the Lady of Shalott. I think you'll like it." And you did. The haunting tale of the lady in her tower, seeing the world only through a mirror forbidden to look directly at life. It resonated with you in ways you couldn't quite articulate. Why does she leave the tower? In the end, it you asked when you'd finished reading, when she knows it will kill her. Lady Catherine considered this her embroidery forgotten in her lap, because she falls in love with Lancelot, with the idea of him really. She's never even spoken to him. But she dies. Yes, but she's seen the world directly, not just through a mirror. Perhaps that's worth dying for. The conversation troubled you long after you'd returned to your duties. The lady in her tower choosing death over confinement. Lady Catherine in her beautiful prison of wealth and privilege. You in yours of service and obligation, all looking through mirrors at lives you couldn't touch. Winter deepened. Snow fell, transforming the grounds into a glittering wonderland that meant more work for everyone. Paths to be cleared, extra coal to be carried, wet boots, and clothes to be dried. Christmas approached with its own demands. The house had to be decorated with holly and ivy. The great Yule log brought in special foods prepared. But there was a festive spirit that made the work seem lighter somehow. Carols sung in the servants' hall, spiced cider shared in rare moments of leisure, the promise of gifts, and perhaps even an extra day off. On Christmas Eve, the family hosted a party for the local gentry. You were assigned to help serve, your status having risen enough that you were now trusted with trays of champagne and delicate canapes. The great hall blazed with candlelight. Ladies in silk and velvet swirled among gentlemen in black evening dress. Music from a string quartet filled the air. It was like a scene from a fairy tale. You moved carefully through the crowd, offering your tray with downcast eyes as Martha had taught you. Most guests took glasses without noticing you at all, but as you passed a group of young men, one reached out and deliberately brushed his hand against yours. "Well, hello there," he said, his voice slightly slurred from drink. "Aren't you a pretty little thing?" You kept your eyes down, cheeks burning. This was exactly the sort of situation you'd been warned about. Male guests who saw female servants as fair game. Martha had been explicit. Avoid, deflect, escape. Never engage. "Another glass, sir," you murmured, trying to move past him. "I'd rather have you bring it to my room later," he replied, leaning in too close. You could smell the champagne on his breath. "Say midnight. I'm in the blue bedroom." Before you could respond, another voice cut in. Cool, authoritative. "I believe my mother is looking for you, Mr. Barton." Lady Catherine. She stood beside you. Suddenly, her expression pleasantly neutral, but her eyes hard as flint. The young man. Mr. Barton straightened up, adjusting his tie. "Lady Catherine, charming party. Your mother has outdone herself. Indeed, she's just over there asking after you. Don't let me keep you." It was a dismissal, politely phrased, but unmistakable. Mr. Barton hesitated, then gave a stiff bow and moved away. "Thank you, my lady," you whispered when he was out of earshot. "Men like that are tedious," she replied, her voice low. "All hands and no conversation. Be careful around him. He's staying until New Year's." She drifted away before you could say more. But the moment stayed with you. Lady Catherine had defended you, protected you, treated you, for that brief moment, almost as an equal in need of assistance, not as a servant to be ordered about. Christmas Day dawned bright and cold. The family exchanged gifts in the morning, attended church, then returned for a lavish lunch that kept the kitchen staff frantically busy until mid-afternoon. The servants' own celebration came later, after the family had retired to the drawing room with their port and cigars. Mrs. Wilson distributed the family's gifts, practical items just as Thomas had predicted. You received a warm woolen scarf in dark blue, far nicer than anything you could have afforded yourself. There was an extra surprise, too. A small package wrapped in tissue paper, handed to you discreetly by Martha. "This came for you," she said. "From Lady Catherine, I expect." Inside was a book, a collection of Tennyson's poems, just like the one you'd read from in her sitting room. Inside the cover, in elegant handwriting. "For Lucy, may you find your own tower to escape from." See, you hid the book, quickly aware of curious glances from the other servants. Gifts from family members were common enough, but personal gifts, with messages, those were unusual and potentially dangerous to your position. The new year arrived with a fresh blanket of snow and the departure of the holiday guests. The house settled back into its winter routine, but something had shifted for you. The book of poems beneath your mattress. The memory of Lady Catherine's intervention at the Christmas party. The growing skills that made your work, if not easier, then at least more satisfying. And something else, a sense of possibility that hadn't been there before. The village with its church and reading circle remained unexplored but not forgotten. A promise of connection beyond these walls. January turned to February, cold and gray. The house seemed to hibernate, drawing in on itself against the winter chill. Fires burned day and night. Rooms not in use were closed off to conserve heat. The family entertained, less spending evenings in the library or drawing room rather than hosting large parties. For the servants, winter meant Chilene's chapped hands and endless battles against mud, tracked in on boots, and dripping water from coats and umbrellas. But it also meant slightly shorter days, with darkness falling early, and the family retiring sooner. One evening in late February, you were carrying a load of freshly ironed linens up to the linen closet when you passed the library door, slightly ajar. Voices drifted out. Lord and Lady Thornfield engaged in what sounded like a heated discussion. "She needs to make a decision," Lord Thornfield was saying. "She's had 3 seasons now. 3 and turned down every suitable offer." "She's particular," Lady Thornfield replied. "Is that so wrong?" "It is when she's 23 and still unmarried. People are starting to talk." "Let them talk. I won't force her. It's not about force Elelenena. It's about duty position continuing the line. If Henry can do his duty and propose to Lady Margaret, whom he barely knows, then surely Catherine can. Catherine isn't Henry. She's what is she exactly?" A pause. "Different. She always has been. All those books, all those ideas." Lord Thornfield sighed heavily. "She needs to put away childish things. Books won't give her a home and family, and marriage might not give her happiness." "Happiness?" Lord Thornfield's voice rose. "What has happiness to do with it? We're talking about duty, about what's expected of someone in her position. You knew you should move on. That eavesdropping on the family was a sackable offense, but you couldn't tear yourself away. This glimpse into Lady Catherine's life, the pressures she faced, the expectations she struggled against, was too compelling. She has until the end of the London season." Lord Thornfield continued his tone final. "If she hasn't accepted an offer by then, I'll choose for her. You wouldn't. I would. And she knows I would. Perhaps that will motivate her to be less particular." The sound of approaching footsteps made you jump quickly. You hurried on to the linen closet, heart pounding. What you'd overheard wasn't your business. And yet the next time you were alone with Lady Catherine helping her organize her writing desk, you found yourself watching her differently, wondering what she thought about her father's ultimatum, whether she knew about it, whether she cared. "Is something wrong, Lucy?" she asked, catching your thoughtful gaze. "You're quiet today." "No, my lady, just tired." You hesitated, then ventured. "If I might ask, will you be going to London soon for the season?" She grimaced. "In April, the annual marriage market. How I loathe it. You don't wish to marry my lady?" The question was impertinent, far too personal. But Lady Catherine didn't seem offended. Instead, she sighed, setting down her pen. "It's not marriage itself I object to. It's marriage as a transaction, a business arrangement. My father sees it as an exchange. My family name and bloodline for someone else's money or connections." She shook her head. "I want more than that. Like Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy you suggested before you could stop yourself." Lady Catherine's eyes widened in surprise, then crinkled with amusement. "You've been reading Austen? Good for you. And yes, something like that, though, preferably with less initial dislike." Her smile faded. "But this isn't a novel, is it? In real life, women like me don't get to choose based on affection. We choose from the options presented." Or she trailed off, her expression troubled. "Or you prompted gently. Or we don't choose at all, and the choice is made for us." She straightened her shoulders, as if physically shaking off the thought. "Enough of that. Tell me, have you finished Pride and Prejudice yet?" The conversation moved on, but the moment lingered in your mind. Lady Catherine's gilded cage seemed suddenly as real and confining as your life of service. Different bars, but a cage nonetheless. March arrived with wind and rain, then sudden surprising warmth. The first crocuses poked through the melting snow. Birds returned, filling the dawn with song. The house stirred from its winter slumber. Windows were flung open to let in fresh air. Heavy winter drapes came down for cleaning, replaced by lighter fabrics. The conservatory bloomed with early spring flowers. Even the food changed. Lighter soups, fresh greens from the kitchen garden's first harvest. For you, spring brought a significant change. Mrs. Wilson called you into her office one bright March morning. "Lucy," she said without preamble, "Martha tells me you've learned quickly and work hard. We find ourselves short-handed with Ellen leaving to get married." She sniffed disapprovingly, as if marriage were a personal affront. "I'm promoting you to junior housemaid. Your wages will increase to £12 per annum, and you'll move to the housemaid's dormitory." You stood speechless, hardly able to believe what you were hearing. A promotion after less than a year in service, from scullery maid to housemaid, skipping the position of between maid entirely. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. You managed finally. I'll work very hard. See that you do. You start tomorrow. Martha will show you your new duties." As you left her office, you could hardly keep from skipping £12 a year. Nearly 4 times what you'd been earning. Enough to send money home to your mother regularly, perhaps even save a little. And the housemaid's dormitory. That was a real step up. Fewer beds, to a room, slightly bigger windows, even a small chest of drawers for each girl, rather than sharing a single wardrobe. That night, as you packed your few belongings, Martha sat on your bed, watching with a mixture of pride and something else. Concern, perhaps. "You've done well," she said faster than most. But what?" She hesitated. "Just be careful. Some of the other girls might be jealous. And well, some might wonder why. Why? What, why you've moved up so quickly? Why Lady Catherine asks for you specially? Why Mrs. Wilson, who never likes anyone, seems to approve of you?" You frowned, pausing in your packing. "What are you saying?" Martha sighed. "Nothing really. Just that success has its own dangers in a house like this. Keep your head down. Do your work. Don't give anyone reason to talk. It was good advice, you knew. And yet, as you fell asleep on your last night in the scullery maid's dormitory, you couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement for the future. For the first time since arriving at Thornfield, you were moving forward, not just treading water. Spring had come to the house, to the land, and perhaps to your life as well. The long, dark winter was over, and who knew what the warming days might bring? Spring turned to summer, and the days lengthened. Your new position as junior housemaid meant earlier mornings but slightly more respectable work. No more coal carrying or boot blacking. Instead, you dusted the library, arranged flowers, and helped turn down beds in the family's rooms. You still scrubbed and polished, of course. That never ended. But now, you worked above stairs more often in the beautiful rooms with their silk wallpaper and priceless paintings. Best of all, your half-day off each week now fell on Sunday afternoons rather than evenings, which meant for the first time you could attend Reverend Clark's reading circle in the village. Mind your back by 5. Mrs. Wilson warned, the first time you asked permission to go. And no wandering off. Straight to the church and back. Yes, Mrs. Wilson, you promised, trying to hide your excitement. The walk to the village was even more pleasant in summer, hedge thick with wildflowers, birds singing in the trees, warm sunshine on your face. You wore your second-best dress, black of course, but with a white collar. You'd embroidered yourself during precious spare moments. The parish hall was a simple stone building next to the church. Inside, chairs had been arranged in a circle. About a dozen people were already there, most of them women, most in the plain, dark dresses that marked them as servants. A table, at one side, held a teapot and cups and a plate of biscuits. Ah, you came. Reverend Clark greeted you warmly. Everyone, This is Lucy from Thornfield Hall." A chorus of hells greeted you. A plump, middle-aged woman patted the empty chair beside her. "Come sit by me, dear. I'm Mrs. Brown from the doctor's house. Is this your first time?" You nodded suddenly, shy among these strangers. "Well, you're very welcome. We're discussing Jane Eyre today. Have you read it?" Your face lit up. "Yes, Lady Catherine gave it to me." There was a moment of surprised silence. Then Mrs. Brown said carefully, "The family lets you borrow books. That's unusual. You realized you might have said too much." "It was one she'd finished with you," explained quickly. "Nothing special." The others exchanged glances but asked no more questions. Soon the discussion began, led by Reverend Clark. To your delight, everyone spoke freely, offering opinions and interpretations. Even you, after initial hesitation, found yourself contributing thoughts about Jane's independence and courage. The 2 hours flew by. When it was time to leave, Mrs. Brown squeezed your arm. "Do come again, dear. It's so refreshing to have young minds among us." Walking back to Thornfield, your head buzzed with ideas and conversation. How strange to be treated as a person with thoughts and opinions worth hearing. How different from the servant's role, where silence and invisibility were prized above all. You returned to find the house in an uproar. Lady Catherine had brought home an unexpected guest, a young man named Mr. Edward Blackwood, whom she'd met at a garden party in the neighboring county. She invited him without asking her mother first, Martha whispered, as you helped prepare a guest room hastily. "Lady Thornfield's fit to be tied, but she can hardly turn him away now he's here." Mr. Blackwood was not what you'd expected. Not like the polished aristocratic men who usually visited Thornfield. His clothes, though good quality, were slightly rumpled, his hair a bit too long, his manner easy and informal. At dinner that night, helping Thomas serve you, noticed how animated Lady Catherine was in Mr. Blackwood's presence, how she laughed at his stories, how her eyes followed him. Later in the kitchen, you overheard Mrs. Peters talking to Mrs. Wilson. "He's got no title and very little money, from what I hear," the cook said, lowering her voice. "Some sort of writer or journalist. Not at all suitable. Her ladyship won't be pleased." Mrs. Wilson agreed. "Lady Catherine knows better. She's just being willful as usual." But willful or not, Lady Catherine continued to welcome Mr. Blackwood. He stayed 3 days, then departed with an invitation to return the following month, and return he did again and again throughout that summer. With each visit, the household staff grew more curious. Who was this man who made Lady Catherine's eyes shine? Who brought books and ideas instead of jewels and compliments? Who treated the servants with casual courtesy instead of lordly indifference? "He's in love with her," Thomas declared one evening in the servants' hall. "Anyone can see it. She could do a lot better." James counted. "Her father won't approve." "When has Lady Catherine ever cared about approval?" Martha said with unusual sharpness. "Let her have a bit of happiness for heaven's sake." The conversation ended abruptly when Mr. Simmons entered, but the speculation continued below stairs. Everyone had an opinion about Lady Catherine's mysterious suitor. For your part, you saw the changes in her more clearly than most, the way she hummed while you arranged her hair, how she lingered over choosing dresses on days when Mr. Blackwood was expected. The new books that appeared on her shelves, poetry and philosophy and politics that you helped her hide from her father's disapproving eye. He writes for the Times. She told you one afternoon, as you helped her dress for tea, about social conditions, housing for the poor factory, reform women's education, real things that matter. "He sounds very progressive." "Maid," you ventured. "He is. That's what She stopped, flushing slightly. "Well, it's refreshing, that's all." But it was more than refreshing, and everyone knew it. By August, even Lord and Lady Thornfield could no longer ignore their daughter's attachment to the unsuitable Mr. Blackwood. The confrontation, when it came, was spectacular. The whole house heard it. Lord Thornfield's booming voice, Lady Catherine's tearful defiance, doors slamming, china breaking, and finally the edict. Mr. Blackwood was no longer welcome at Thornfield. Lady Catherine was forbidden to correspond with him, and she would be going to stay with her aunt in Scotland until she came to her senses. She left the next day, white-faced and silent. The house felt emptier without her, duller somehow, as if a light had gone out. That autumn brought changes to Thornfield beyond Lady Catherine's absence. Modern conveniences began to appear. First a telephone in Lord Thornfield's study, then electric lights in the main reception rooms. Progress. Mr. Simmons sighed, showing the footman how to use the newly installed light switches. Makes life easier, I suppose, but it's not the same. Seems like magic. Thomas marveled, flicking a switch on and off. No more trimming wicks or filling oil lamps. No more fire risk either, Martha added practically. Remember when Lady Margaret's curtains caught last Christmas? Nearly burned the whole east wing. The electric lights were only the beginning. That October, Lord Thornfield purchased his first motor car, a gleaming Daimler that required a new kind of servant, a chauffeur. Mr. Parker arrived from London to take up the position. He was different from the other male servants, more mechanic than domestic, with oil-stained hands and a forthright manner. He didn't eat in the servants' hall, but took his meals in the newly converted stable block, now transformed into a garage for the motor. Uppity sort, Thomas sniffed. Thinks he's better than us because he can drive that noisy contraption. But you were fascinated by Mr. Parker and his machine. One afternoon, returning from the village with supplies, you paused to watch him tinkering with the motor car's engine. Curious, are you? He asked, noticing your interest. It's amazing, you admitted. How fast does it go? 20 minutes an hour easy. Faster on a good road. He wiped his hands on a rag. Want to see inside? Before you could answer, Mrs. Wilson's voice cut through the yard. Lucy, what are you doing dawdling out here? Back to work at once. You hurried away, but the encounter left you thoughtful. Mr. Parker represented something new in the carefully ordered world of Thornfield. He wasn't quite a servant in the traditional sense. He had specialized knowledge skills that couldn't be easily replaced, and that gave him a certain freedom. The winds of change continued to blow through Thornfield that autumn. A vacuum cleaner arrived, a monstrous contraption that required 2 people to operate but did the work of 5 maids with brooms and carpet beaters. A washing machine was installed in the laundry, reducing the back-breaking labor of the laundry maids. They'll be replacing us all with machines soon, Martha joked one evening as you sat mending by the fire in the servants' hall. Then where will we be? I wouldn't mind, said Betsy from the kitchen. My cousin works in a shop in Manchester, stands all day, but gets evenings and Sundays off, and better pay too. It's not just machines, you added thoughtfully. It's attitudes too. You told them about the reading circle, about how servants there discussed books as equals with ideas of their own. That sounds dangerous, Thomas said, but he was smiling. Next thing you know, we'll be wanting to vote. Some of us already do, Martha replied dryly. Or hadn't you noticed women marching in London last year? The suffragists. You'd read about them in a newspaper Mr. Simmons had discarded. Women demanding the right to vote, to have a say in the laws that govern them. Some had even been arrested for their protests. It's all changing, isn't it? You said quietly. Everything. No one disagreed. December brought Lady Catherine home from Scotland subdued and pale. There were no letters from Mr. Blackwood, no mentions of his name. It seemed Lord Thornfield had won. But as you helped her unpack, you noticed a small photograph tucked inside a book. Mr. Blackwood's serious face looking back at you. Not a word, Lady Catherine whispered, seeing you notice. Please, Lucy. You nodded, understanding completely. Some secrets were worth keeping. Christmas came again, your second at Thornfield. It felt different this time. You were established now, with a place in the hierarchy responsibilities of your own. The scullery maid, who'd arrived wide-eyed and terrified 18 months ago, had grown into a competent housemaid with prospects for further advancement. Mrs. Wilson had hinted you might be promoted to head housemaid when Martha moved up to lady's maid for Lady Margaret, who was engaged to be married in the spring. It would mean more money, more responsibility, more status below stairs, a good career path as service went. And yet, the reading circle had opened your eyes to possibilities beyond service. Mrs. Brown's daughter had gone to train as a teacher at a college in Manchester. Reverend Clark's niece worked as a typist in a solicitor's office in York. Even Betsy talked of leaving to work in her uncle's bakery, where the hours were long, but she'd have her own room above the shop. The world was changing. New jobs were opening for women. New ways of living that didn't involve being at someone else's beck and call every hour of every day. January 1907 arrived cold and clear. 2 years since you'd first stepped through the servants' entrance at Thornfield. 2 years of learning, growing, watching, waiting. The house had changed in that time. Electric lights now illuminated most rooms. A telephone rang in the hallway. The motor car sat in its garage, ready to carry the family faster and further than horses ever could. And you had changed too. Your hands were still calloused from work, but your mind had expanded through books, through conversations at the reading circle, through quiet moments with Lady Catherine. One snowy afternoon, you were arranging fresh flowers in the drawing room. When Lady Catherine entered unexpectedly, she looked troubled, a letter clutched in her hand. "Lucy," she said, "I need to ask you something important." "Of course, my lady." She glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. "If you had a chance to leave here to have a different life, would you take it?" The question caught you off guard. "I don't know. It would depend, I suppose, on what the different life offered, if it was better, if it was what I wanted." She nodded slowly, as if you'd confirmed something for her. "And what do you want, Lucy? Have you thought about it?" No one had asked you that since that strange moment in her bedroom, nearly 2 years ago. "What do you want? What would you be?" "I think you began. Carefully. "I think I'd like to learn more. Maybe become a teacher someday. Or work in a library, somewhere with books." "Yes," she said softly. "Books, freedom. A life of the mind. I understand completely." She hesitated, then held out the letter. "This came today from Mr. Blackwood. You took it with some trepidation. Should you be reading her private correspondence?" "It's all right," she assured you. "I want you to read it." The letter was brief, but emotional. Mr. Blackwood had been offered a position as a foreign correspondent in America. He was leaving England in February. He asked Lady Catherine to come with him as his wife. "He wants me to choose," she said when you looked up from the letter. "Him or all this?" She gestured around the drawing room, its luxurious furnishings suddenly looking more like the trappings of a cage. "What will you do?" you asked, handing back the letter. "I don't know yet, but I wanted to tell someone who might understand. And you did understand. The choice she faced was different from any you might make, and yet similar to safety, or risk the known or the unknown duty, or desire whatever you decide, you said carefully. "I hope it brings you happiness." She smiled, a small, sad smile. "Thank you, Lucy. I hope the same for you." The exchange stayed with you for days afterward. Lady Catherine, with all her privilege and wealth, seeking understanding from a housemaid. Lady Catherine, trapped by expectations and duties, looking for a way out. And you, with your own dreams taking shape, your own possibilities opening up beyond these walls. Winter deepened, but within you something was beginning to thaw, a sense that the future wasn't fixed. The choices existed even for someone like you. February brought news that shook the household. Lady Catherine had disappeared, left in the night, with only a small vow. A note on her dressing table said simply, "Gone to America. Don't try to find me. I have chosen my own path." See, the house erupted into chaos. Lord Thornfield raged. Lady Thornfield took to her bed with a migraine. Telegrams were sent. The telephone rang incessantly. The police were called, then dismissed when the note was discovered. Below stairs, speculation ran wild. Had she really gone to America to Mr. Blackwood? Would they marry? Would she be disinherited? "She's brave. I'll give her that," Martha said, as you helped her carry clean linens upstairs. "Giving up all this for love. It's not just love, though, is it?" You replied thoughtfully. "It's freedom, too, to be herself, to choose her own life." Martha gave you a sharp look. "Don't go getting romantic notions. What works for Lady Catherine won't work for the likes of us." But you weren't so sure anymore. The boundaries that had seemed so fixed, so permanent, were proving more permeable than anyone had imagined. If Lady Catherine could choose a different path, the thought lingered unfinished, but potent with possibility. After Lady Catherine's departure, Thornfield Hall seemed to fall under a shadow. Lord Thornfield grew remote, spending more time in London at his club. Lady Thornfield took to her bed frequently, complaining of nerves. Even the staff felt the change, moving through their duties with less energy, less purpose. Spring came slowly that year. The crocuses were late, the daffodils reluctant. Rain fell more often than sunshine broke through. The whole world seemed hesitant, uncertain. You continued your duties now as head housemaid following Martha's promotion. The work was familiar now, almost automatic. Your hands knew their tasks without conscious thought. Light the fires, dust the ornaments, polish the silver, turn down the beds, but your mind was elsewhere. Each Sunday at the reading circle brought new ideas, new possibilities. Mrs. Brown's daughter wrote from Manchester about her teacher training college. Reverend Clark mentioned a library in York looking for assistants. Even Thomas, to everyone's surprise, announced he was leaving service to work for a department store in Leeds. Better hours, he explained over dinner in the servants' hall. Better pay too. And my own room above the shop. No sharing. Mr. Simmons shook his head disapprovingly. It won't last. These new jobs aren't secure like service. First economic downturn, and you'll be back. Mark my words. Maybe Thomas allowed, but at least I'll have tried something different, seen a bit more of the world than just these four walls. His words resonated with you. Something different. More of the world. The ideas took root, growing quietly in the fertile soil of your imagination. Then came the letter from Lady Catherine. It arrived in early May, forwarded by a friend in London to avoid Lord Thornfield's notice. Martha brought it to you secretly, her face a mixture of concern and curiosity. "It's addressed to you," she said, handing over the cream-colored envelope. Her handwriting, be careful where you read it. You waited until your half-day off, taking the letter to your favorite spot by the stream that ran through the estate's woodlands. The paper was fine, the handwriting elegant and familiar. "Dear Lucy," it began. "I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing from New York City, where Edward and I have been living since our marriage in March. Yes, I am now Mrs. Blackwood, though that name means little here where no one knows or cares about English titles and family connections. America is everything Edward promised. Vast, energetic, constantly changing. The buildings in New York reach to the sky. The streets buzz with motor cars and electric trams. Everything moves faster here, including, it seems, one's thoughts and ambitions. I am writing not just to share my news, but to make you an offer. Edward has connections with a library here that is looking for assistance. The work involves cataloging, helping readers find books, and occasionally reading to children. It made me think of you immediately. If you should ever wish to leave Thornfield, there would be a position waiting for you here. We have a small guest room in our apartment that would be yours until you found your own place. The wage is $15 a week, almost twice what you earn now, I believe. I know this is a great deal to consider, leaving England, traveling to a strange country, starting a new life. But I also know from our many conversations that you have dreams beyond service, that you see books as doorways to other worlds, as I always have. Whatever you decide, know that I think of you often and fondly. You were a friend to me at Thornfield when I most needed one. For that alone, I remain in your debt. With warm regards, Catherine Blackwood. You read the letter 3 times, letting its implications sink in. A position in a library in America, away from service, from bells and strict hierarchies and endless physical labor. A chance to work with books every day. It seemed impossible, unimaginable, and yet Lady Catherine had done it. Left everything familiar behind for a new life. Why couldn't you? You tucked the letter fully into your pocket and walked slowly back to the house, your mind whirling with possibilities. That night, you couldn't sleep. The letter seemed to pulse beneath your pillow where you'd hidden it. America. New York, a library. The words repeated in your mind like a poem or a prayer. By morning, you'd made no decision. The daily routine claimed you again. Fires dusting beds silver. The familiar rhythm of service that had shaped your life for over 2 years now. But something had shifted inside you. A door had opened, and once opened, it could not be easily closed again. The summer of 1908 passed in a blur. The house maintained its routines. Despite the absence of Lady Catherine house parties, shooting weekends tennis on the lawn, all the rituals of aristocratic life continuing as they had for generations. But beneath the surface, change was coming. More staff left without being replaced. Mrs. Wilson grumbled about the difficulty of finding good help. Nowadays, Mr. Simmons complained that young people no longer saw service as a respectable career. They all want to work in shops or factories. He lamented over dinner, as if standing behind a counter all day is better than being part of a great house like Thornfield. No one argued with him directly, but glances were exchanged around the table. Everyone knew someone who had left service for these new opportunities. Everyone had heard stories of better hours, better pay, more freedom. The motor car expanded the family's world beyond the local community. Weekend trips to London became common. Visits to friends in distant counties that would have required elaborate planning with horses now happened on a whim, and the telephone brought the outside world into Thornfield in new ways. News traveled faster. Decisions were made more quickly. The careful, measured pace of country house life began to accelerate. For you, Lady Catherine's letter remained a constant companion tucked inside your favorite book of poetry. You took it out sometimes at night, rereading her words, imagining the life she described in New York. Tall buildings, busy streets, a library full of books. In September, an unexpected visitor arrived at Thornfield. A woman in a smart traveling suit and a hat adorned with a single feather. She came not to the main entrance, but to the servants' door, asking for you by name. It was Lady Catherine's lady's maid, Miss Phillips, who had gone with her to America, but now returned on family business. She asked me to speak with you. Miss Phillips explained as you sat together in the servants' hall during your afternoon break to answer any questions you might have about New York about the journey. It's really so different there, you asked, hungry for details. The work, I mean. Miss Phillips nodded. Everything's different, less formal. People speak to you directly, look you in the eye. I'm working as a seamstress, now in a dress shop. Better hours, my own room, in a boarding house for working women, and no one cares who my parents were or where I came from. Are you going back? As soon as my mother's health improves, there's nothing for me here anymore. She studied your face. You're considering it, aren't you, Lady Catherine's offer? I don't know, you admitted. It's such a big step. It is, she agreed. But sometimes, big steps are the only way forward. After Miss Phillips left, her words stayed with you. Sometimes, big steps are the only way forward. You thought of Lady Catherine stepping onto a ship bound for America, of Thomas leaving for his new job in Leeds, of all the people who had found the courage to change their lives. Could you be one of them? Autumn brought more changes to Thornfield. Lord Thornfield announced that the house would be closed for the winter. The family would stay in London until spring. Most of the staff would be let go temporarily, with a skeleton crew remaining to maintain the house. You'll stay on, of course. Mrs. Wilson told you, with your new position and experience. Half wages during the closure, but full board and lodging. It should have been reassuring. In uncertain times, job security was valuable. And yet, as you watched other staff pack their belongings, something inside you whispered, now, this is your chance. That night, you wrote 2 letters. One to your mother in London, explaining your plans, enclosing most of your saved wages. The other to Lady Catherine, accepting her offer, asking about the journey, the details. The decision once made brought a strange calm, as if you'd been swimming against a current for years and finally chose to let it carry you instead. Winter descended on Thornfield. Snow fell. The remaining staff, just 6 of you, now rattled around the vast, half-empty house like peas in a drum. Your footsteps echoed in the silent corridors. Your voice sounded strange in rooms designed for many more people. In January, Lady Catherine's reply arrived along with something unexpected. A steamship ticket to New York dated February 15th. Consider it an advance on your first month's wages, she wrote. We'll be waiting at the dock. Time seemed to speed up after that. Your notice given to Mrs. Wilson, her disapproval palpable but resigned. Your few possessions packed into the same cardboard suitcase you'd arrived with. Your goodbyes said to Martha, to Betsy, to the others who had shared your life these past 3 years. Your last day at Thornfield dawned clear and cold. Fresh snow blanketed the grounds, transforming the familiar landscape into something new and magical. You walked through the house one final time, touching the banisters. You'd polished the door-orc knobs, you'd cleaned the furniture, you'd dusted. Strange how a place could become part of you without you noticing. How routines and rituals could shape your days, your thoughts, your very self. But it was time to go, to step through a different door than the one you'd entered by. To become someone new again, as you had when you first arrived. Mrs. Wilson met you in the entrance hall, your coat already over her arm. Well, Lucy, she said, her voice gruff but not unkind, I can't say I approve of this American adventure, but you've been a good worker, reliable, respectful. If you ever wish to return to service, there would be a place for you here. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson, you replied, touched by this unexpected acknowledgement. For everything you've taught me, she nodded briskly, helping you into your coat. The world is changing faster than people like me can manage. Perhaps it's right that young people like you change with it. Outside, the motor car waited to take you to the station. Not Mr. Parker driving today, but Lord Thornfield himself, come unexpectedly from London. Lady Catherine wrote to me, he explained, as he helped load your suitcase, asked me to see you safely to Liverpool. Least I could do under the circumstances. The drive was mostly silent. What could you possibly say to this man who had employed you, who had rarely noticed your existence, whose daughter had helped change your life? But as you neared the station, he spoke again, his voice thoughtful. She seems happy, you know. Catherine, her letters, there's a lightness to them I haven't seen since she was a child. He glanced at you briefly. I was angry. At first felt she'd betrayed her duty to the family. But now I wonder if she wasn't braver than all of us following her heart like that. She's very brave, you agreed softly, and very kind. Yes, he nodded slowly. Kind enough to offer a friend a new beginning. I hope it brings you happiness, Lucy. I truly do. At the station, he shook your hand formally, then surprised you by adding, tell her. Tell Catherine that her mother and I send our love, and that we understand. Finally, I will, my lord. Then he was gone, the motor car disappearing down the snowy road, and you were alone on the platform with your suitcase and your ticket to a new world. The train journey to Liverpool passed in a dream. Fields and towns flashed by the window, white with snow, and somehow distant, as if you were already looking back at England from far away. In Liverpool, you found lodgings for the night in a small hotel near the docks. From your window, you could see the great steamships in the harbor, smoke curling from their funnels into the winter sky. Tomorrow, you would board one. Tomorrow, your journey would truly begin. That night, you slept deeply despite the strange bed, the unfamiliar sounds of the port city outside. Perhaps it was exhaustion, perhaps anticipation, perhaps simply the knowledge that you had made your choice for good or ill, and now could only move forward. Morning came with pale winter sunshine and the cry of gulls. You dressed carefully in your best clothes, packed your suitcase one final time, and made your way to the docks. The RMS Coronia loomed above the pier, larger than any building you'd ever seen. Crowds swarmed around it, passengers boarding relatives saying goodbye, porters with trolleys of luggage, sailors preparing for departure. For a moment, you hesitated, the enormity of what you were doing suddenly overwhelming. Leaving England, crossing an ocean, starting a new life among strangers in a country you'd only read about. Then you remembered Lady Catherine's words from long ago. What would you be if you weren't in service? And your own answer, tentative but true, something with books. A teacher perhaps, or a librarian. Sometimes, big steps are the only way forward. You took a deep breath, gripped your suitcase firmly, and joined the queue of third-class passengers waiting to board. Around you, others were making the same journey. Families with children, young men traveling alone, elderly, couples holding hands, all leaving something behind, all hoping for something ahead. As the queue inched forward, you thought about the girl who had arrived at Thornfield 3 years ago. How frightened she'd been, how ignorant of the world and her place in it, how accepting of the limits others placed upon her. You weren't that girl anymore. Service had taught you discipline, attention to detail, the value of work well done. But it had also shown you the rigid boundaries of class and privilege, the invisible walls that separated people who were at heart not so different from each other. Lady Catherine had broken through those walls, and now so were you. At the top of the gangplank, you paused for one last look at England, the gray-green land that had shaped you, confined you, and ultimately set you free. Then you turned and stepped onto the ship into the unknown future, waiting across the sea. The crossing took 8 days. 8 days of adjusting to the constant motion of the ship, to the cramped quarters you shared with 3 other women, to the strange mix of tedium and wonder that was ocean travel. You spent hours on deck watching the endless horizon, marveling at the vastness of the water, at your own smallness within it. At night, the stars seemed different, somehow brighter, closer, more numerous than you'd ever seen from the attic window at Thornfield. On the 8th day, a cry went up from the bow. "Land America!" You joined the crowd at the railing, straining for your first glimpse of the new world. Gradually, the smudge on the horizon resolved into the skyline of New York buildings reaching impossibly high like a forest of stone and steel. And then, as the ship entered the harbor, you saw her, the Statue of Liberty, her torch raised against the blue sky, welcoming you and all the others to a land of new beginnings. The processing at Ellis Island was confusing, exhausting. Lines and questions and medical examinations, papers stamped, names recorded. But finally, you emerged with your suitcase and your identity card, a legal immigrant to the United States of America. And there, waiting beyond the barriers, was Lady Catherine. No Mrs. Blackwood now. Her face thinner than you remembered, her clothes simpler, but her smile just as warm. "Lucy," she called, waving. "Over here." You pushed through the crowd toward her, hardly believing this moment had arrived. She embraced you without hesitation, as if the differences in your stations had been left behind in England, along with so much else. "Welcome to America," she said, stepping back to look at you. "How was your journey? Long, you admitted, but worth it." "I think it will be," she promised, taking your arm. "Come, Edward's waiting with the automobile. We have so much to show you." As you followed her through the bustling terminal, surrounded by languages and faces from all over the world, you felt a sense of possibility, unlike anything you'd known before. Here no one cared who your parents were. No one judged you by your accent or your clothes or which entrance you used. Here you were simply Lucy Bennet, newly arrived from England, ready to begin again. The library where you would work was everything Lady Catherine had promised. Vast, light-filled, welcoming books on every subject imaginable lined the shelves. Children gathered for story hours. Adults came to read newspapers, learn English, discover new ideas. Your small room in the Blackwoods apartment gradually filled with your own books, your own possessions, your first paycheck, your first real money earned outside of service. You spent on a blue dress, not black. A small rebellion, but a significant one. You wrote to your mother regularly, sending money when you could, stories of your new life always. In her replies, she marveled at your adventures, your independence. "You've gone further than I ever dreamed," she wrote. "I'm so proud of you." Sometimes, in quiet moments, you thought about Thornfield, about Martha and Betsy and the others, about Mrs. Wilson and her keys, about the silver you'd polished and the fires you'd lit and the endless stairs you'd climbed. But mostly, you thought about the future, about the evening classes in literature you'd enrolled in at the city college, about the children who listened wide-eyed when you read to them at the library, about the young woman you were becoming, educated, independent, free. One evening in early summer, you sat with Catherine and Edward on the roof of their apartment building, watching the sunset paint the city gold. 3 years since you'd arrived. 3 years of learning, growing, changing. "Do you ever regret it?" you asked Catherine suddenly. "Leaving England, your family, all of it?" She considered the question seriously, her face thoughtful in the fading light. "Sometimes I miss certain things. The countryside, the traditions, the sense of history. But regret," she shook her head. "No, I chose this life, this freedom. How could I regret that?" You nodded, understanding completely. You had chosen too. Stepped through a door into an unknown future, just as she had. And you? She asked. Any regrets? You looked out over the city, stretching before you, its lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk, so different from the gentle hills and ancient stones of England, so alive with possibility. No, you said softly, no regrets. And as the stars appeared, one by one in the darkening sky, you knew it was true. The past had shaped you. The hard work, the discipline, the boundaries of service, but it didn't define you. Not anymore. You had moved from shadows into light, from silver to polish to books. To read from a life prescribed by others to one you were writing yourself, page by page, day by day. The journey wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, choices to make, doors to open or close. But tonight, sitting with friends as darkness settled gently over the city, you felt at peace with the path that had brought you here, with the girl you had been and the woman you were becoming. The lights of New York glowed brighter as night deepened. Somewhere in the harbor, the Statue of Liberty's torch still burned, welcoming new arrivals to shores of possibility. And you, who had once counted 64 steps from attic to kitchen, now counted stars instead. Their ancient light, a reminder that every journey, no matter how small or large, begins with a single step into the unknown. And with that thought, close your eyes and drift off to sleep.